What if I told you Oregon has an edge rusher who may not win with elite Ben, may not be the rarest first step, and still might be one of the freaking safest edge defenders in the 2027 draft class? Going into the 2026 season, Teitum Tuioti is powerful, physical, productive, and complete, and that's exactly why he's my edge number 5. At 263 pounds, he wins with strength. He sets the edge. He finishes tackles. He produces sacks. He knows how to knock down passes, and he holds up against the run. And he will give you the kind of 3-down reliability that defensive coordinators love. The ceiling may not be the best, but the floor is built around real football, and that matters. So today, we're going to be breaking down the background, the Oregon connection, the productivity climb, the 2025 breakout, and why edge number 5, Teitum Tuioti, is still worth the pick. What's going on, everybody? Draft Yoda here. We're data-driven and prospect-focused. And Mr. Teitum Tuioti is a 8.94 out of 10 on my draft board, edge number 5, and a number 52 overall prospect. It's a real interesting edge evaluation because he's not the classic speed rusher profile. He's not the edge who wins because he has 4.4 off the corner. He's not bendy. That's not his game. It's just not. His story is tied very close to Oregon. He's the son of the defensive line coach at Oregon, Tony Tuioti. God, I'm going to have to work on pronouncing that name. And already, it makes his evaluation a little unique because he's not just arriving at Oregon as another recruit. He arrived around a defensive line coach that he grew up with. And that matters because you grew up with a father who's a defensive line coach. You know a little bit more coming in. The knowledge base is there. At least we would hope so. Before moving to Oregon, moved from Lincoln, Nebraska, Sheldon High School, is where he played his senior season, putting him right in Oregon's backyard. He was a 3-star recruit. Chose Oregon over Kansas State, Nebraska, Boise State, and a couple others. It's a developmental player with a football family, a strong frame, and a chance to grow in Oregon's defensive line room, and that's exactly what he did. The production climb is one of my favorite parts of this evaluation. 2 sacks as a freshman, 5.5 sacks as a sophomore, 11 sacks as a junior. That is steady growth. That matters because development's not always a linear line. Some players flash early and never grow. Some players look like finished products in 1 year and never add to their game. Tuioti kept climbing. He just kept climbing. Every season the production got louder. Every season the role got bigger. Every season the impact became clearer. And in 2025, he was no longer just a useful piece in Oregon's front. He became one of its best players. 2025, started all 15 games, led the Oregon defensive line with 11 sacks, finished among Big Ten's sack leaders, added 47 run stops, 38 pressures, 2 forced fumbles, batted 6 passes at the line of scrimmage. That's a complete season. That's kind of what you want to stress if you are a defensive lineman. You can be really good at 1 or 2 things, but if you can put together a complete season like that, it sets you apart. Some edge defenders set the edge but don't create enough pressure. Some players flash in pass rush, but disappoint in early downs. Tuioti, you know, gave Oregon value in both phases of the game. Um, he's not just a third down rusher. He's not just a run setting strong side edge. He's a real every down defender on that defensive line. Um, Another thing that stands out is the power. He's a heavier edge at 263, and he plays like it. He sets a very hard edge. He can handle contact. He can play through tight ends. He can fight offensive tackles. He holds his ground very well. And that matters for edge defenders because you can't just be a pass rush specialist and play every snap of the game. Just not going to happen, especially at the NFL level. If you can't defend the run, teams are going to attack you. They'll run at you. They'll make you wrong, and they'll squeeze gaps against you, and they'll make your life miserable as an edge. But he has the size and the strength to hold up, and it gives him a safer projection than a lot of lighter speed only rushers. Another thing I love about him is the run defense itself. 47 run stops is a huge number. It tells you that he's not just present in the run game, he's impacting it. He's finishing plays, he's getting involved. He was not just washed out. Against Texas Tech in the title game, I don't think that was the title game. It was in the playoffs, though. He had 7 run stops. And that's the kind of performance that shows, a player can really anchor an edge in a major game. Against Penn State on the road, 2 sacks and 5 run stops. That's truly a great game for an edge, especially on a defensive front like Oregon has, that is just so dominant and talented. One of the things that I think really helps set him apart is his ability to finish tackles. He's only had 6 missed tackles, and that's outstanding for an edge defender. Edge players are often asked to finish difficult tackles, quarterbacks escaping, running backs bouncing outside, screens, options, pullers, that can change the fit, and, Tuioti finishes. That matters because disruption only matters if it turns into actual stops. You can't just run up and yell boo at a running back and expect them to fall down. You have to be able to tackle. You have to be able to hit somebody and put them to the ground. I spoke about Penn State. Penn State is one of the games that if you're watching, you're going to fall in love with him on. 2 sacks, 5 run stops on the road. That's a complete edge performance. It's one of those games that tell you that a player's production is not just coming from beating up on weaker teams. He showed up in a major environment, affected the pass game, affected the run game, and finished plays, and that matters. Playing Rutgers, he showed the high-end impact as well. A sack, forced fumble in that game that showed the kind of play that changes drives. And for an edge defender, strip sack ability is huge. Sacks are good, but sacks with forced fumbles are game changers. It just is what it is. Nobody's perfect. Everybody has something they can work on. Some of the things he can improve on. One of the things he can improve on is the top end speed. I don't want to say it this rough, but he kind of has a pedestrian top speed compared to some of the elite edge rushing athletes in this class. And that limits the bend around the corner. He's not the kind of edge that's going to completely win by just threatening the outside shoulder, flattening, and finishing at the quarterback. That's not his game. And that matters to the ceiling. NFL loves edge rushers who can win with speed. And Tuioti wins with more power. And that can absolutely work, but when you step up to where everybody has power, you have to step your power up as well. Second concern is the first step. Um, it's not, he doesn't have that rare first step that we've seen with other athletes. He can win early, but he's not consistently beating tackles before they get out of their stance. And that means the pass rush often has to develop through contact. He has to win with his hands, power, leverage, and effort. And that's fine. Nothing wrong with that, you know. But it means the rush plan has to keep growing for him. He has to continue to learn his technique, and it has to be perfect. Just is what it is. Um, when Oregon drops him from the edge into coverage, he's very ordinary. It's not something that a lot of NFL teams are going to ask him. I don't think he's going to be the stand-up outside linebacker that drops into coverage. That's just not him. But just as part of the evaluation, it is something that needs to be, mentioned. That's not a strength for him to drop into coverage. It's not. Why is Teitum Tuioti edge 5 on my board, and it's simple. Colin Simmons is just a rare specimen. Mateo Uyunglele has a stronger combination of size, power, and high-end pass rush projection. Dylan Stewart is just explosive. And Suntrain Perkins really is a unique hybrid skill set that is more of a wild card. If we're talking safety, I would put, Tuioti over Perkins. But if we're talking high end ceiling, Perkins is higher. And I'm not saying he's bad. He's not one of the freakiest athletes in this group, but he might be one of the most complete. He defends the run, rushes the passer, finishes tackles, creates turnovers. He's edge 5 because he's not edge 5 because he has one rare talent. He's edge 5 because he's a full package and he's dependable. He's not your high ceiling guy, but he's the guy who's going to come in and have a 15-year career playing edge. And that is very sought after, at least in my book. What I want to see out of 2026 is sustainability. You already broke out. Now you got to back it up. Well, the checklist is clear. Keep the sack production high, keep the run defense, impact strong, and move, add more counters to your moves, show better answers against long tackles, and continue finishing tackles at a high level. If you prove the 2025 breakout was not just a single year spike, NFL is going to fall in love with you. It's as simple as that. Question comes to mind is, can he climb? And obviously, yes, he can. There's people above him that are projected above him because of their ceilings. If those people slide, he is safe and sound and going to climb because of that. He can also climb if he starts showing some counter ability in his pass rushes. If he shows something more than just power, as a down in and down out rusher, that's going to help him climb as well. Currently, he's an 8.94 out of 10. Edge number 5, number 52 overall in my draft prospects. He's heavy, powerful, complete edge defender with strong run defense, a real sack production, reliable tackling, and the ability to impact passing games, even when he doesn't win clean as a rusher. 11 sacks, 47 run stops, 38 pressures, 2 forced fumbles, 6 batted passes, and only 6 missed tackles on a 15-game season. That's a complete profile. The concerns are real. He doesn't have top-end speed. The bend is limited. He's not rare when his first step comes up. And the coverage value is just ordinary. But he's not a flashy edge. He's a power edge, and he's a complete power edge. And that definitely matters. That's where I have him on my board. What do you think of Teitum Tuioti? Would you have him higher? Would you have him lower? How much do you value power edges who can win both in the run and the pass game? Let's talk about it in the comments. If you enjoy these player profiles, make sure you hit a like button, subscribe to the channel. I just want to keep putting in this work. Our goal is to have over 100 prospects before college football kicks off. As always, I'm Draft Yoda, Bill Workman, your favorite draft nerd's favorite draft nerd. And we'll catch you guys in the next one.